December 31st, 2011, one of our troopers was involved in an accident with a private citizen. On that day, a man lost his wife and a son lost his mother. As the commissioner of this department, it was imperative on me to take a close look at what we had done wrong and the things we needed to do better in the future. And as the commissioner, you look at what happens and you look for ways to try to influence and emphasize policy and procedure so those things don't occur again. And here comes Below 100. At an IACP conference, heard the Below 100 pitch. We have jumped headlong in our agency to make it part of our culture. So the 5 basic tenets to me are a very simple way to convey to your personnel those things that need to be practiced, outside of that large policy manual that we all have, that if you stick to those 5 basic tenets, not only can you protect yourself while you're working, but you can protect others from injury or death. In our culture in law enforcement, we're always going someplace quickly to try to get there to do our jobs. And so it's something that we need to pay attention to. We all know that speed is a contributing factor in accidents, not only with the general public, but with our profession in our response. The important thing is to get there. And so sometimes the best thing to do is to throttle back. Wearing your seatbelt. I remember the statistic that I heard the first time that over 40% of the accidents involving law enforcement officers with injuries and fatalities that folks weren't wearing their seatbelt. That blew my mind because in our agency, it's part of our policy to wear your seatbelt. Well, what's the practice? And so very simply, you're reminding folks that it's important to wear the seatbelt. Wearing your vest, that aspect of what can you do in a lot of instances that you can't control at the beginning of your shift, wearing a vest that's going to protect you. Time and time again, we hear the testimonials of how a vest has saved an officer's life. So taking the time to put your vest on. Complacency kills. Law enforcement is a job of routine. Either set shifts or set things that we do, and with a routine we can get complacent. We can have that expectation that everything's going to be the same all the time. They look for that complacency of our routine, and so we need to be mindful to have situational awareness and not let our routine drive us into an unsafe situation. And then lastly, what's important now? An overall concept of how to prioritize your actions so that you're not causing distractions to yourself. Every day someone makes the statement, "If I could just," when dealing with grief over the loss of a loved one. There are landmarks in every state and in our nation's capital to honor the fallen. We erect memorials and add names to them on a continual basis. These things are customary following the loss of a fellow officer, but Below 100 challenges us to ask ourselves, what could have been done to prevent the loss? If I could just do something to prevent injury or death today, what would it be? There are so many things in life that we have absolutely no control over. We have to challenge ourselves to be critical of the job we do every day. In doing so, we will begin to focus on things we can change. Law enforcement must begin to adopt a zero tolerance for preventable injury and death, preventing law enforcement line-of-duty deaths in a job that will never end. It's a continual process of improvement, and one that everyone who dons a badge must strive to improve. Influencing is the task of being the compelling force to change effects of action, behavior, or opinions of others. What influence do you have in your department? How can you influence others to eliminate preventable line-of-duty deaths in your department and within your profession? Individual responsibility necessitates that we learn from our mistakes and the mistakes of others. We cannot change the past, but can work to prevent those mistakes from happening again. We must take an individual stance to try and lead a gradual and constant change. And finally, we must be humble in the face of outcomes resulting from our actions, particularly those we can neither envision nor comprehend.